Good morning, everybody, from a wonderful snowy London. I'm excited that you could join me today. My name is Cameron, and the session today is about looking into how to build your data hub to drive app advisory. And I'm so excited to be joined by Will Farnell this morning. Hi, Will. I think you're on the line.
Good morning, Cameron. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Thank you for joining us. So it's going to be a pretty quick, sharp run through of what we're trying to achieve here, and really just to uncover what does it mean to turn all of your client data into insights and into advisory. So this morning, I'm just going to go through some introductions, and then we'll briefly look at the Silverfin architecture and explain what it does behind the scenes. And then the majority of the time we'll be focusing on how the system or the platform is generating client insights to change that conversation that you can have. And then part of that discussion, Will be sharing his ideas and insights around how you can turn that into app advisory opportunities. And then we'll just conclude and talk about ways that we can communicate and talk after this. So without further ado, you can see our wonderful faces on the screen. So my name is Cameron John, and I am Silverfin's leader in the UK and Ireland. And I've been with Silverfin for just over a year. And it's been a really exciting opportunity to bring what has started as a Belgium in origin company to bring that to the UK and Ireland. So we now work in 7 countries across Europe, and now we're really expanding into the UK. And I want to share with you today how that really changes the concept of how you can service and deliver great experience to your clients. Really pleased that Will has joined me today. And Will, you can introduce yourself, but I know you have a lot of experience, but specifically talk about and introduce the App Advisory Plus a group that you've set up, or organization that you've set up.
Thank you, Cameron. So again, good morning, everybody. My name is Will Farnell. Originally, I set up Farnell Clark in 2007. We were a 100% cloud business from 2009. So we've lived and breathed technology for 10 years, but we found that even with the experience we've had of using technology, we found ourselves in situations where we didn't have the answers when it came to implementing new app technology for our clients to solve different challenges that they faced. And I'm sure many of you have experienced the situation where you're trying to understand how a bunch of apps work together, and you might pick up the phone or send a support ticket to the general ledger provider who tells you that it's not really their problem because it's to do with the other party's API, and you speak to the other party, and nobody wants to take any ownership of the challenges that you're facing. So we came across that, and I thought, you know what, there's got to be a solution here to help firms in that situation. I couldn't find one. And that led to App Advisory Plus being created. So essentially, we are providing an online app directory, an online community and knowledge base, but also a first-line app help desk for firms when they struggle understanding how do we make these 3 or 4 apps talk together and work together seamlessly. So that's the kind of stuff that we're supporting accounting and bookkeeping firms with right now, and we're really excited.
Brilliant, thanks, Will. A really key gap there that you're addressing. So great opportunity. And maybe just before we even start to get anything further, I'm sure there's some key principles that you talk about, because I know you do a lot of advisory with firms even outside of app advisory. And but in this context, maybe just share some of the key principles you share with those firms that come onto the app advisory, and what you challenge them to think about.
Sure. So we're already seeing lots of common threads around app advisory coming through from firms, whether that's questions we're getting asked on our help desk or just natural conversations we're having with firms. It's kind of an area that people are beginning to get more interested in as they get their zeros and QuickBooks and everything else embedded, and they're using pre-accounting tools. It's like, well, what do we do next? And we're seeing a couple of common challenges. The first one is around, so how do we generate revenue from this? How do we price app advisory? So that's a big question we get, and that's about the solution to that is about breaking down the stages of app advisory so you can chunk it down and charge for different elements of that. But the second challenge we see is that too often we've got people saying, hey, I've got a client and they're in this sector and we think they need an app. Which one should we pick? And it comes back to that first point really, is that you've got to break this down and you've got to understand first of all, so what's the challenge? What's the problem that the client or the accounting firm are fundamentally trying to solve, to be able to make the right recommendations for technology solutions to support that, if indeed technology is the answer in every case. So they're the common things that we're seeing, and as we go through the session this morning, Cameron, we'll pick up on some of those things. But like any advisory, you can't do any of it if you haven't got that relationship with your client and you haven't got the opportunity to have conversations with clients to understand what their challenges are. So that becomes a start point for app advisory, just as it does for any other form of advisory that firms are delivering.
Thanks, Will. Great advice. So I just to summarize before we're going to start to look at the bit about Silverfin and then how that can help you to do that first stage of identifying what the actual need is. Here at Silverfin, we're all about helping you to create real client value. So over and above what you're doing, how do you increase the value that you can deliver back to your clients? And for us, that's through insights and foresights. And we talk about that in the concept of turning the financial data into insights, into advisory. And we kind of take that to the next stage with some of the large firms that we're working with, and they really focus on the data that sits behind all their client files, and that client data is really driving a lot of their interactions with their clients, and that really is a business model evolution, because it's looking to really how do you create that value and the revenue that Will was talking about. And so I want to uncover a bit of that about that now. One more slide, and before we actually look at product and then start to look at how we can use it to build our data hub to drive advisory. If you haven't seen Silverfin before, you're going to see it in a minute, but I just wanted to set out what the architecture of Silverfin allows you to do, so that you can see what's going on behind the scenes, and then you can understand how that is enabling you to use the data at your fingertips. So on the screen at the moment, down the left-hand side, it's a pretty typical view of what UK firms use for accounting/bookkeeping tools. So Sage, whether that's online or still Sage 50 desktop, QuickBooks online, Xero, and we do free agent, cash flow. I can't even list all the others, but the 50 other systems in the market. We enable a live link into the Silverfin centralized data hub. So with obviously cloud packages, so predominantly QuickBooks and Xero, obviously it's very seamless, and we can get a live link through all the transactions flow in. We can also do that with certain desktop products, particularly Sage, where we can create a daily link up to your installed versions of Sage to get all that detail into a data hub. And from there, we're going to focus the rest of the time on the data insights and the client-wide insights. But on the right-hand side, it's just to highlight, we also provide a full suite of compliance. So we go out into working papers, we go into full accounts production and corporation tax and management reporting. So that just shows the architecture of what we're trying to do. We're trying to pull everything together to have everything on a consistent chart of accounts, which then allows you to make your process more efficient and to be able to identify the opportunities on the back of that. I am going to go into now Silverfin. So I'm now in my Silverfin platform, and if I go just to show you that in the what I've described in that architecture slide, this is an actual individual company file in my Silverfin platform. So I'll just close that because that's our communication tab, so it makes it a bit clearer. You can see here in my company, I've got a summary here at the top, but we have workflows that define the activities that go on in this client. And you can see I've got working papers, which are all live linked back to my accounting package. I've got corporation tax, accounts production. I've got a planning completion checklist that can do here. I can do a VAT section if that's not already done in the bookkeeping. But what we're trying to do is provide you analysis over the top of all of these processes so you can manage and monitor progress and monitor the workflow. And one final thing before we go to the data, sitting alongside this is communication. So I can communicate in any of these tabs at transaction level and bring all that information together. So we work with a lot of large and medium-sized firms, and we help them manage change. But what we're trying to do is bring consistency in process. And when you get all your clients with their data flowing in, working in a consistent way, driving efficiencies, the opportunities that presents is significant. And that's where we want to go to now. So just so you are clear on, sitting behind the Silverfin is work on each individual company. But when we get to this level, I've now got a list of all my companies, and they've got live links going on, and we can now really start to uncover some of that data. So I'm going to run two things, and then I'm going to hand it over to Will and go and ask his, like, if you had this information at your fingertips, what could we do? So I now have all my clients listed, and we have our data analytics. I've got some preset ones here, but they're fairly simple to start with. So all of my clients with instant updates, I can now show run an analytic, and you can see it's show me all my clients with declining cash balances over the last 3 months. So it brings me up these 5 examples. I've got declining cash balances over the last 3 months. You know, pretty simple. I could overlay that against debtor days increasing over the last 3 months. So it's now running across, and you can mesh that data together, still financial data, but we can mesh that together to give us a picture of, cash going down, debtor days going up. What might that be about? So I'm going to stop and pause there and turn to Will and go, Will, with your understanding of what the Silverfin platform is doing, with that information at your fingertips, what would you start to be looking for, and what are the questions you would be asking?
So I think there's thanks for that, Cameron. That's really helpful. I think there's a step back to take here first of all, and talk about some of the challenges that I think most firms that I see, and certainly a big challenge we had in our firm for a very long time, is that we have a real problem in terms of multiple data sets. So we used to have all of our data on Iris for compliance. We would have our personal account, our business accounting data tucked somewhere else in Xero. We then have a separate practice management solution, and we didn't have a single source of truth. So that made it really difficult for us to do basic business stuff like marketing and things to our clients. So I think the first point to make here is what you're doing in terms of not only helping the firm bring their data together, but actually consolidating a single view of your client data as well, really unlocks opportunities. And that's what the idea of this webinar is about, is showing how insight into data can enable us to have conversations we couldn't normally have. So leading on from that, we've got this idea that I mentioned earlier, is we can only have advisory conversations if we're talking to our clients, if we've got access to information about what our clients are doing and what the challenges are. So in our firm, we do that because we do daily bookkeeping and we talk to our clients really, really regularly. And that means we have conversations. And the start point for any kind of advisory or particularly app advisory is we've got to do a fact find. So and the fact find becomes the lead generator. So this is a way that we unlock opportunities to start to have conversations with clients about how technology can help them run a better business. So we have two ways of doing that. We either do it in a very kind of planned, considered way, and we have to sit down and have a conversation with our client, and we start with the really big open questions. But the benefit of the kind of data you've got here is that it makes it very easy for us to be able to identify common areas to have conversations with clients. And you've started with a great example of managing cash, and cash is key. So if we can identify, as you've done here, firstly, we've got a whole bunch of businesses that have got declining cash balances. So the first point is, before you even overlay the debtor days, we've got an opportunity to reach out to these clients and say, we notice that your cash balances are going down. Is there anything in particular that you're doing at the moment that's driving that? Are you making investments? If you're making investments, what kind of investments are they? How can we help? Are you doing it the right way in terms of how you're funding those investments? But equally, it might simply be, as you've overlaid here, that their customers are taking longer to pay them. So we can start to have conversations about, well, how are you getting paid? How easy are you making it for customers to pay you? Are you doing credit control? Are there opportunities to automate your credit control process by using tools like Chaser and Satago? Are there opportunities to look at some of the bigger invoices you've got, and again looking at opportunities for market invoice type tools, or again using Satago to effectively use invoice discounting to get bigger lumps of that invoice paid quicker? But it's the kind of thing that it's really easy for accountants to not have those conversations with clients, because if we have to go into every client's bookkeeping file and review whether or not their balances are going up or down, the cost benefit of doing that is, it just doesn't stack up. So what you're doing here is being able to instantly highlight, in this case, the dozen or so clients that it's clearly worth having a conversation. We know the cash going down. We know that their customers are taking longer to pay them. So let's have a conversation. Let's add some real value to those clients, either through us delivering more services internally for our client, or talking to them about how technology might be able to solve some of the challenges that they're clearly on the surface facing based on this data.
Yep. And I'm sure even at a fairly simple level, you could introduce that concept of payments and go cardless and getting things on direct debit, etc., etc. So there's lots of different ways that you could, I guess, interpret this data, but there's loads of conversations you could have on the back of it. But that all springs from doing the fact find and having the data.
That's it. And as we say, the whole app advisory conversation is broken down into a bunch of stages. And the first stage is this fact find. That's your lead generator. That's how you identify opportunities to move it to the next stage of the process, which becomes a chargeable service, whether that's process mapping, whether it's scoping, to understand what it is the business is trying to achieve with their processes, and move to the point where you can have enough understanding to be able to start evaluating the right pieces of technology to then implement and deliver the outcomes that the client's looking for.
Yeah, great. Now, just to clarify, I've run these two triggers, as we call them, over a 3-month period. This is fully customizable. It could be over 1 month, it could be over 6, it could be over 12 months. 2 years, etc. All of that can be configured. It's fairly simple to be able to do that, and then we can add a trigger so that the system can run it hourly, daily, weekly, and then a trigger, either an in-product communication or an email, can be sent to the managers of a certain group of clients or the partner in a certain area. So we enable that, the automation of that, which you were Will articulating earlier. That's the hard thing at the moment, of going into individual company files and digging out what are the issues. When you have consistent data set, you can then automate it.
That's it. And one of the questions that we get asked a lot, Cameron, is how as a firm, how do we start doing app advisory? And one of the suggestions that we make to firms is have a look at your client base. Look at what sectors businesses are operating in. Where have you got a bunch of clients in a particular sector? Because there's lots of sector specific apps out there in the market that if you've got 20 clients in a particular sector, it's really easy to identify tools that will support those kind of businesses. And I'm assuming that's something we can do with your data here as well.
Yes, good segue, Will. One that I just set up in this environment is, for example, if I have all my clients in the hospitality industry, I can bring up the profit and loss and their revenue. Now, this is a fairly high level summary. I can then start down into, I could look into year-on-year growth, or any over 10% growth, anything that you can think of. Because of this data is structured, you can get that information out. But here we're looking at all the revenue and profit for our hospitality clients, and I guess you're able to then to pick up on what specifically you could do there, and do benchmarking, and do offer consistent services across that group.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that you take, I mean, you've picked a great one here. Hospitality is a really good example, and certainly clients we have in hospitality, some of their biggest challenges are around managing staff and rotoring and all of those kind of things. So I'm guessing that if this was our data, we could start to highlight people with a wage line in their accounts that was over a particular level, for example, so we can identify those that are employing staff, because then we might look at tools like Deputy that we know firsthand save clients hours and hours when it comes to integration with payroll, managing staff scheduling and rotoring, staff communications, all within the Deputy app. So that's a great way for people to be able to say, right, okay, let's look at our hospitality clients. Let's get in touch with the team at Deputy, and let's put an event on for our hospitality clients to say, come along and we'll talk to you about how we can help you save money and time in terms of managing your staffing, for example. So this is exactly the kind of stuff that will open the door to us going out and kind of on semi-mass start to have conversations with clients about particular app stacks that will work with clients in a particular sector.
Yep. So just to be clear, this is, Silverfin is not telling you how to do it. It's just telling you the clients to have those conversations with, or to highlight that for you. So yeah.
And again, that's the kind of stuff that is really difficult for lots of firms to be able to surface that data. I mean, QuickBooks and Xero are starting to help with that in terms of sectors, in terms of Explorer on Xero, for example. But it's still fairly kind of linear in terms of, well, show me clients in this sector, without actually being able to start pull the data and cut and slice the data at the level that you can, because of the tools that you've got at your disposal.
Yeah. So we've been talking quite a bit about opportunities, and that really, we encourage, and that's really about when we talk about business model evolution, it's kind of how do we spot new opportunities that we don't have, and spot new revenue lines and new services that we can offer. We at Silverfin also balance that with using the data is also a great way to manage risk. And you can manage risk across, I guess very tangible kind of like thresholds of compliance. You could look at VAT thresholds, et cetera, or audit thresholds. But there's managing risks about your clients too. So I'm just going to run this one. It's showing me all my clients, their current cash balances who have loan amounts. And I think I've got a filter over the loan balances due in the next 12 months, and slicing that against their current cash balances. And so I guess, Will, if you had that information, it kind of opens up opportunities beyond just accounting services to discuss what they're doing with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know this is test data, of course, but I mean, I'm sure everybody here that's an accountant was looking at this and saying, "Wow, we've got somebody there with a £10 million loan at an 11% interest rate." I mean, that's a lot of interest. So certainly there's things that we could look at there, and there's certainly businesses with cash balances sufficient to clear the loan amounts. And but again, it comes back to that point that we want tools as accountants to help us have really valuable conversations with clients. So aside from app advisory, just being able to have something that surfaces those things that we should be triggering. And you've got the term trigger there. It's a really great term, because that's what we want. Is we have 650 odd business clients. So for us to go through each one of those individually and look for triggers for conversations is incredibly time consuming. Whereas what you've got here is the ability for us to very quickly be able to have a trigger for those conversations, and that's clearly the value of data.
Sorry to cut. Exactly. One final one, which brings it all the way back to very personal level, and that personal relationship you have with your clients, and developing that. So we have this is showing me all my clients with directors' loan account values over £10,000, and obviously, Will, you can translate into a very personal story for each one of them, and creates an opportunity to have that conversation.
Yes, and I'm sure that everybody on here has torn their hair out over a number of years with directors' loan account balances. But certainly, again, being able to track this before year end very easily, very visibly, enables us to start planning with clients before we get to the year end and have to have the conversations about P11Ds and Section 455 and all of those other challenges. So again, it's just clearly demonstrating the value of data to us as advisors.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think we're coming up to our half hour, and I did promise that it'd be short and sharp. And I just wanted to give you an insight into what a platform like Silverfin could do. But I guess, just Will, for you to summarize those key steps that you advise accountants to go through if they are thinking about starting an app advisor, or how to do that. If you just want to go over that again, and particularly about the fact find, which is critical.
Yes, so I think like every piece of advisory, we have to be able to have that conversation. We have to do that fact find. We have to collect information to enable us to understand what are clients trying to achieve, what's their objective, what are the barriers, what are the challenges they're facing, to identify what the opportunities are for us to support them. So every piece of app advisory starts with that fact find. I've used the term lead generation many times, but this is your investment into finding out what the business is trying to do, how they're doing stuff now, so that you can go away and think about, well, we think that by doing X, Y, and Z, we can deliver value to our clients. That then lets you go back and start to talk about how would it be if we could save you 5 hours a week on your staff scheduling. Those kind of questions are the things that most people would say, actually, you know what, if I could save 5 hours a week, that would be really good. How much is it going to cost me? And you start to get into that conversation of being able to position value to your clients and have those conversations about utilizing technology. Clearly, you need to keep up to date with what's going on in the app ecosystems, or use app implementers or solutions like App Advisory Plus to provide
exactly,
you that,
or come to
App
Advisory Plus.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But it's
Thank
a great
you.
opportunity.
Absolutely, and I hope those that have joined us today can see that, you know, a platform like Silverfin is bringing consistency to your process, and and then unlocking the data, and then couple that with the services of someone like App Advisory Plus to really make the most of that, can really transform your business model, or the business model of accounting practices, as technology, of being in control of the technology and advising your clients in the best way that they can harness technology as well. So Will, I'd really like to thank you for your time. Any final parting words of advice?
No, I'd just like to reiterate the thanks for inviting me on. Thank you for everybody that's taken the time out of their busy schedules to join us. If you've got any questions on the back of the session today, or what we're doing with App Advisory Plus, jump onto the website and you can register for a free account that gives you access to our app directory at appadvisoryplus.com. But thank you again for inviting me to join you this morning, Cameron.
No worries. Thanks, Will. Always great to have you. And likewise, you can visit silverfin.com to find out more about our platform. But I look forward to speaking to many of you in the not too distant future, and catching up with you at loads of events and on social media. So thank you for joining us today, and appreciate your time. Thanks. Bye.